And welcome to Good Morning UK Have Your Say, a Force for Good's mid-morning show coming to you live from our nerve centre here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow. With me, your host, Alistair McConaughey. And a big shout out to all our wonderful listeners and fantastic supporters who are already coming in with their comments already. It's good to see Debbie. Good morning to you, Debbie, and to Linda from Southeast London. How are you? And Ross, a great British morning to everyone up and down the United Kingdom, and always good to see Adam. And Alan as well. Morning to you, Alan. And Robert, hopefully see you guys soon. And Tommy, good morning from Newcastle. Catherine, good morning, everyone. And again, Tommy, good morning to everyone. And Jon, good to see you. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And TC, as always, good morning, he says, to all fellow unionists. And Alan as well. And we've got a packed programme coming up for you. I'm pleased to say at the top of the hour we're going to have a guest. It's the legend who is Max Dunbar, back by popular demand, and we're going to be knocking things around for 20 minutes with Max at the top of the hour, and that will just follow our competition. And we've got an amazing competition prize, okay, coming up at the top of the hour. Look at this, Great British biscuits. Okay, this is a tin shaped like a bourbon biscuit, okay, and that's our prize going out to one of you lucky people today if you get our question right at the top of the hour, which will be based upon our On This Day in British History speech that we'll be talking about 5 minutes before the hour. But up until then, we are going to be talking about lots of things. Folks, please do share this, okay? Please do share this broadcast and get it out there if you can. If you're on YouTube, there's a share button. If you're on Twitter, please retweet it with a positive quote tweet, and we will then be able to put your tweet out to over 26,000 people. So that's a way of you seeing, you getting people seeing your tweet as well. That's a way of you reaching 26,000 people. And if you're on Facebook, please do share this out there, because that's the only way we get heard, is through our fantastic supporters firing this around the internet. So thank you to everybody who does that. That's something very constructive that you can do to really help us. Now, we're going to talk today about the Euro final controversy, and I'd really like to hear your thoughts on what on earth happened, because we've got a few thoughts to share about that fiasco. What a fiasco, and what an embarrassing load of nonsense, and so sad for supporters of the English football team, because it really was. They got so far, but they fell on the sword of Gareth Southgate's political correctness. And how ironic that a team that had been, or rather a manager really, because at the end of the day he's the one behind all of this, he was making them such a woke team, and they got to the final but they fell on their own politically correct sword as a result of Gareth Southgate, not as a result of the poor footballers who were put up to take the penalties, but as a result of Gareth Southgate, the insipid politically correct manager of the England team, who fouled it all up, not just for England supporters, but for supporters of England doing well throughout the United Kingdom, which of course included a force for good as well. So what are your thoughts today? Nelson says the good guys are back on. Thank you, Nelson, for that. And Jon says here, it was a fake racism storm in the media used as justification to toughen up online hate speech laws. That's absolutely so. Bill says England were unlucky. Shame there was a small element. Well, they didn't actually. That's the thing. There was no fans. We'll talk about that in a minute. The idea that England fans were coming online in massive numbers, being so-called racist, has been proven now to be totally wrong. The majority of these tweets were from troll accounts, were from bots, and were from abroad as well, because anybody can get onto Twitter and create a fuss about that. Good to see Christopher back. And Ross says that they should have had the older, more experienced players taking the penalties. Of course, they absolutely should. But as Christopher said, Southgate was determined to showcase what he calls diversity, and of course that was the failure at that particular moment. Oh yeah, Bill's talking about them storming the gates. Yes, the fans that tried to get into the stadium prior to it. That's absolutely true, Bill. That was silly behaviour. And yeah, it's almost like a psyop, says John here. Classic psyop: problem, reaction, solution. And Adam says, at least we were in the top three. Bill thinks Sterling and Shaw should have taken a penalty. Absolutely. Sterling was at least warmed up, whereas the other two were not even warmed up. They were just straight off the bench. And that in itself was a wrong move for a manager to take. So just to give a wee bit of background to where we're coming from on this particular issue, Gareth Southgate, and it's all him to blame, okay? So we should emphasise straight away here that whether the players themselves scored or missed, their colour should be, and usually is, irrelevant on these matters. And if we had an old-fashioned English manager, then colour would indeed be irrelevant, and it wouldn't be pushed up to be the be-all and end-all of everything in the way that Gareth Southgate has made it. But we can't ignore the fact that these three young players were put into that position by woke Southgate because of their colour. When two of them were unprepared because they were literally fresh off the bench, and the third one, Saka, was a 19-year-old who had never taken a penalty before, certainly not at that level of football. But he did that deliberately in order to promote his, what I would call, racial mania. Okay, racial mania is the word, because Southgate's obsessed with race. Most of us don't really think about it, and largely we've come just to ignore it over time. But Southgate is obsessed with it, and he's obsessed with bringing it up all the time. Just like Good Morning Britain, the programme in the morning, is obsessed with race. I don't remember people being obsessed with race in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, even the 2010s, to the extent that they are today. Really obsessing about it like a mania, almost. Something that's strange. So Southgate wanted to put up these players in order to promote his racial narrative, okay, of some kind of new England, to make some kind of racial point, really known only to himself. But this was his obsession. And the whole kneeling thing as well comes from that obsessive race obsession that Southgate has. And so he wanted these three black players to win it for England, so he could then say, look at the wonders of what he calls diversity, look at the wonders of immigration, isn't that fantastic? And unfortunately, it did not happen the way that he thought it would happen. In fact, it was the very worst thing that could have happened from his narrative, because these three players not only fouled up the penalties, but they fouled them up in a farcical manner, which almost like from a comedy film, like almost like a comedy of errors. It's like, how bad could you take a penalty? And those three guys responded to that challenge, and every single penalty was worse than the one before. And I mean, Saka, I have to say about Saka, he did fire an extremely good pass back to the goalkeeper. I mean, if that had been his goal, he could have passed that. That would have been like the number one pass to a goalkeeper in history. Okay, that was Saka's. That was Saka's attempt. Unfortunately, it wasn't a pass back to a goalkeeper. It was meant to be a penalty. Okay, I mean, it was, these penalties were ironic and farcical in their awfulness. And so straight away, this Gareth Southgate's racial mania and his racial narrative just collapsed in those few minutes. And we're not at all blaming these black players, because they should have not been put into that position. It was Southgate who carries all the can for doing that, because two of those players were fresh off the bench. Their legs would just be cold, for crying out loud, and the third one was not competent at his age to take it. And it wasn't fair for him to take it either, because he's just starting his footballing career as a 19-year-old, and I'm afraid that's going to haunt him for a while. That failure will haunt him, and it was wrong to have put a 19-year-old in that position. But you see, this is what political correct mania will do to somebody. They will put a young chap up there who's not properly the man to do it. And if one or two of you have already said, there was plenty of other players there, including Sterling, who's black as well, who was warmed up and who's a great kicker and could have put it in the back of the net. Just like Maguire put it in the back of the net. I mean, Maguire put it in the back of the net so hard, he actually broke the camera at the back of the net. And that's how you take a penalty. You know, I could have kicked the ball harder than Rashford did. You know, my granny could have kicked the ball harder than these guys, quite frankly. Everybody I know could have made a better fist of it than these three guys who are getting paid millions of pounds a year to put the ball in the back of the net. Yet they unfortunately just made such a catastrophic failure of it. But we're not blaming them, we're blaming Gareth Southgate for putting them in that position in order for him to promote his racial narrative of diversity and this new England idea that Southgate is completely responsible for. And you know, Southgate does have form on this. He does have a political agenda. In June 2018, and we'll put the video up there of it, we found it on Twitter yesterday, it's circulating, and he said, quote, "I don't like the connotations around Brexit. There were some generational opinions about what modern Britain should look like. We felt that young people in particular would connect with our guys because they must have been confused after Brexit. Because for me, a lot of the undertones of the voting on Brexit were racial undertones. In other words, if you vote for Brexit, you're some kind of mad racist or potential racist, according to Gareth Southgate in an interview back in June 2018, broadcast in November 2018. So this is where this guy's coming from, okay? He does have this racial mania going on that most normal people don't have, yet he forces it onto the rest of us, including his young players, okay? And he puts them into positions that they're not meant to be in. So Southgate has a serious agenda to promote his own political agenda, because he seems to be a man who sees society solely through the lens of race, which is an extremely misleading frame to see society, and an extremely murky one at that. But he chooses to do so, and he has to be criticised, and we are criticising them. We're criticising Southgate for doing that. We're not criticising the players for getting into a bad position that Southgate put them into. So when that collapsed, okay, when these three players made such a foul up of it, the narrative immediately changed into claiming almost immediately that Twitter was being swamped by racist England fans. Well, I basically live on Twitter, and I have to say, I never personally saw any of these comments. The first I heard about it was the politicians complaining about all of these comments, and I thought that's surprising, because I would have seen something, you know, I'm reading thousands of tweets almost every day. I would have seen something, and I had never seen anything. So I don't know where these tweets were, but apparently there was a lot of them. But what that tells me, if I'm not seeing them, if they're not coming into my organic feed, then there must be new people, or they must be people without followers. Because if they had potential followers, those followers would have retweeted it, and their tweets would have come into my feed. So immediately I was suspicious. And I was right to be suspicious, as I'll get to in a moment. But what disturbed me was straight away Boris Johnson comes out going, oh, so terrible to see all of these things. What did he in fact say? He said, the England team deserve to be lauded as heroes, not racially abused on social media. So straight away he's suggesting that, people are racially abusing the England team. Well, who's doing this? Who's doing this? Well, yesterday it comes out, people started diving into who are these people who are doing it. And GB News said that something that calls itself the Centre for Identifying Digital Hate had identified 105 Instagram accounts, and of those they could only find 5 from the United Kingdom. Okay. Toby Young last night tweeted out that the Premier League's data itself monitoring abuse against players has shown that around 70% of cases are coming from users outside the United Kingdom. And a lot of these are just troll accounts. As we've said before, China or Russia or any country in the world, or simply just somebody who's trying to create mischief, can set up a Twitter account and can fire stuff out, and everybody in the world will see it. Okay? Now, China has a concept of unrestricted warfare. What that means is they cause problems for their enemies throughout the world on any platform, on any level that they possibly can. Don't tell me they haven't got an army of people on the internet firing out tweets pretending to be English supporters. Of course they do. Of course they do. And there's even the extent to which our own with people in the United Kingdom itself will create these false hate crimes. Like if you're a Black Lives Matter supporter, it's in your interests to portray England fans as racist. So all you need to do is set up a false account and pretend that you're some racist English fan and put that out and about, and hey, presto, you've created a big issue on things. And here's a funny one, which we didn't tweet out because it included the original tweet in it. But there's one out there claiming to be a white man. He's got a white man's profile, wearing an England shirt with a really English name. And he has been very racially abusive in his tweet. But what he forgot to do was to remove all the tweets below his last tweet. All he did was he changed his profile picture and he changed his name. But if you scroll down his tweet, you actually find he's a Somali and a Muslim, okay, pretending to be an English supporter named Mark. Okay, that's how easy it is to do this on Twitter. So people need to wise up and realize how easy it is to defraud and spread misinformation and spread disinformation on Twitter. So I won't be surprised if the overwhelming majority of these so-called racist tweets, however you define that, are in fact from abroad or from people who are just creating trouble. But what that did, of course, was it was able to change the narrative. And instead of people criticising Gareth Southgate for his woke agenda, which had put these three poor guys in such a bad position that they missed their penalties, instead of criticising Southgate for that woke agenda, they doubled down on it. And they simply just tried to pretend, okay, England didn't win, but England's racist anyway. Look how racist England is. All the English people are racist. You know, it's like you can't escape from it almost. So, we don't have a whole lot more to say than that, except Gareth Southgate needs to be held to account for his woke agenda. It's unacceptable what he did to these three poor black guys, putting them in that position when they were not fitted for that position, simply in order to promote his racial mania. Oh, yeah. So, exactly, impersonation is a huge online problem. And yeah, absolutely right regarding these tweets. Alfie says the left are sending this racist abuse along with communist China and Russia. I've no doubt that these enemies of our country are using Twitter for this, and we've seen it too on the Scottish nationalist thing and also on the COVID thing. Any sensible voice gets shot down, and then you go and look and say, who is this person that's trying to shoot us down? And it's usually some kind of silly name. It's usually an anonymous profile pic, and the person's usually got 1 to 15 followers, which says that they either started that account that day, or they maybe just started that account in order to reply anonymously to us. And it's a huge thing, and that worries me. If there were ever to be a second referendum, goodness me, all of the enemies of the United Kingdom who want to see the United Kingdom broken up will literally mobilize their digital armies on Facebook and Twitter in order to attack us. And there's simply not enough of us to effectively fight back against that. So it's a serious issue. Well, Adam says there, what do you think about the front page of the National where it shows the Italian coach's face superimposed onto William Wallace? I think it's just stupid, is what I think, and it's very sad that, you know, we put out tweets and TikTok videos and so on prior to the game saying, bring it home for Britain. Because the way we see it, if you're British, you're involved, and we love to see England doing well, we love to see Northern Ireland or Wales doing well, and vice versa also. We don't think that that kind of nasty rivalry is good within the United Kingdom. Of course we get footballing rivalry, and we understand that, but we don't think you should make a big thing of that. You shouldn't blow it up, because once you blow that up, you are playing with fire. And the National was certainly playing with fire on that. So there's no, yeah, we our position is keep politics out of sport, Colin. Yes, keep politics out of sport. I don't quite know what you mean there about the reverse thing. Yeah. So Lynn says, you're so right, Alistair. Saka has only taken 2 professional penalties, one for England youth and one for Arsenal. He missed one and scored one. He should never have been put under that pressure. Of course, that's absolutely right. Absolutely right. And, you know, I don't watch Good Morning Britain, but I check it out on Twitter. And this morning, it was all about taking the knee. Okay, so again, it's still this racial mania that they're pushing us under. And it was also about why we all should wear masks. Okay, so think about that. Imagine if you're a little child watching that. You come away saying, I have to wear a mask and I have to kneel. Now, both of these things are symbols of submission. Okay? So it's like they're trying to get us to submit. All of us, regardless of our race, are trying to get us to submit with masking and kneeling. And that's really sinister. And it's pushed out as if it's virtuous. Oh my. Goodness me. Well, we've got the legend who is Maxton Barr coming up at the top of the hour. Before that, on this day in British history, and I'm going to ask a question based upon what we talk about on this day in British history, and the winner will get this fantastic tin of Bourbon biscuits in a metal tin shaped like a Bourbon box. That's incredible. That's incredible. Oh man, we're so generous here at A Force for Good. Folks, please do share the broadcast if you can. And please retweet with a positive quote comment. Well, what happened on this day in British history? Well, on this day in British history, the Matterhorn mountain was conquered by a British-led team. Unfortunately, tragically conquered. It was 14th of July 1865, the first successful attempt to reach the summit of the Matterhorn, and British climber Edward Whymper, aged only 25, led a party of another 6 chaps up the mountain, and it was his 9th attempt at it. And there was 2 Swiss guides, father and son, both called Peter Togwalder, Douglas Haddo, Michael Cross, Francis Douglas and Charles Hudson. Unfortunately, on the descent, Haddo slipped. He fell onto Cross and he pulled down Francis Douglas and Charles Hudson, all 4 of them, to their deaths. But in the fall, the rope snapped, leaving Whymper and the 2 Swiss still clinging on, and they made it safely to the bottom. But Whymper naturally was haunted by that tragedy for the rest of his life. He said, "Every night, do you understand, I see my comrades slipping on their backs, their arms outstretched, one after the other, in perfect order at equal distances. Cross, the guide, first then Haddo, then Hudson, and lastly Douglas. Yes, I shall always see them." And he married age 65 to a 23-year-old, which is cashback if ever there was one. And his marriage produced a daughter, but they separated, and he died in France, where he is buried. And I found this really good picture of him, which I'm going to share here, because he also conquered a mountain in France. And what was the mountain called? The Barre des Écrins in the French Alps. And this photograph shows his large statue in the Écrins, I guess how that's pronounced, Ecrins National Park, which was inaugurated in 2009 to mark the centenary of the French Mountain Guide Bureau. So that's actually a big statue. That's at least 21 feet high, and I think it's made of wood, but I'm not sure. It could be metal. Anyway, that's to Edward Whymper, and that's in France. So that's Edward on this day. Now, my question to you for this, and please do send in your answer, and send it in please to contact@aforceforgood.uk. And the question is, Edward Whymper, on this day, on the 14th of July in 1865, conquered for the first time which mountain? Okay, which mountain did Edward Whymper conquer on this day in 1865? And the first person to send to contact@aforceforgood.uk will get this incredible tin of bourbon biscuits. We're so good to you guys because you deserve it, because you're wonderful supporters and wonderful listeners. So please do send in that contact@aforceforgood.uk. That's the email address for the answer to that question. Folks, I want to bring in the legend who is Max Dunbar, and if I can just ask Max to bring the seat over, please do welcome Max. Many of you know Max personally. Good stuff, Max. Good to see you. Did you have a good journey in?
I did, Alistair. Yes, I took the motorcycle. It makes a lot of sense when the weather's decent and dry to use that machine because of the number of roadworks, and you can, generally speaking, nip past all the traffic and get to where you want to go in reasonably good time and get parked. Of course, that's another advantage of it. So I'm a great advocate of the use of two wheels, if possible.
You are a bit of a motorcycle fanatic. Do you want to mention anything about your motorcycle love of?
Well, it was my main interest as a teenager. I was obsessed with motorcycles from the age of about maybe 12 onwards, and I collected all the brochures. I wrote away to the companies who manufactured these machines and got all their brochures. I just regret that I don't still have them. At least I don't think I do. Possibly in my parents' loft they may resurface at some point, but I somehow doubt it. I've always had a keen interest in motorcycles, and also the danger of them. Of course, they are highly dangerous. But I think if you ride them with awareness and always defensively, then your chances of survival are better. And at the moment, at any rate, touch wood, I still have my 2 arms and 2 legs, so that's always an advantage. And I hope to hang on to them for as long as possible.
Well, please do hang on to your arms and legs for as long as possible, Max, because we need you in the fight to keep Britain together. I mean, we need every single person who can do it. So please do. As you know, of course, it's not necessarily the rider who can be as safe as anything. It's the person in the car or the person in the lorry that's...
Well, this is the thing. It's anticipation, and disregard everyone else as a complete idiot, and you probably won't go too far wrong. And the other thing I try to do is not to ride the machine too often, because obviously the more you ride it, the more the chance you have of having an accident. So I do kind of ration my use of it. But the weather in Scotland helps to do that, so there you are.
Richard says don't do a Lawrence of Arabia.
Yes, I think he was killed on a Bruff Superior. That was a great British motorcycle, highly collectible. They go for vast amounts of money these days, and it really was the Rolls Royce of British motorcycles at that time in the 1930s, I think.
Are there any British motorcycle companies left today?
Well, Triumph are producing machines again. I don't really know that much about them, but presumably it's a completely new outfit using the Triumph name and modern technology. A lot of their machines are designed to look retro. In other words, to look like the motorbikes you might have seen in the 1960s and early 70s, that style, but with the reliability of modern technology and engines. And although the Japanese did take over the motorcycle market back in the 1960s and 70s, at the end of the day they did a lot of good because they upped the ante on quality and performance, and these British motorcycles that we see today have benefited from that. So we have to thank the Japanese for giving us that reliability, and the same applies to cars as well, actually. They improved the standards, there's no doubt about it, and British motorcycles today are far better, I think, from what I gather, than they were years ago. My main interest is Italian motorcycles, although I use a BMW to get around on. It's the most practical machine.
Well, there's Brandy saying, what bike do you think was the best, or is the best? Is there a way of deciding that?
Back in the 1970s, my dream was to buy a Laverda Iota 1000cc. That was the superbike of the day. But if you wanted to go touring abroad or any long distance sort of stuff, a BMW R75/5 was the machine then. And today BMWs still have that reputation for reliability and long distance ability that they had then. So BMW have maintained the standard, and they've also moved with the times. So I ride an R80, which is a machine which is 30 odd years old. I bought it new. I still use it, and it's still going strong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I've taken it abroad, and it's never missed a beat. So BMWs are not the most exciting machines. I'd say the Italian machines are the most exciting, for me at least.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a Ducati 996. That was a real rocket ship. But the BMW at the end of the day is the one that I've held on to because it's the most practical.
Brandy says, yes, BMW wonderful. I have a, what's that, sports car? Sports car. Sorry, yeah. Thought maybe that's, I don't know much about bikes. I thought maybe that's a bike. A Forza Italia. Do you have one of them?
Yeah. No, but maybe, you never know. Maybe they'll produce something called that at some point. Forza Italia. Yeah.
I had a Honda 554 F2, says James.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good machine. Good mid-range motorcycle.
Here we go. Callum says, I own an L Bonucci 67. Do you rate this motor, mate?
To be honest, I'm not familiar with that. Benelli is the nearest I can think to that, but maybe that's I don't know what that is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Adam's got a question for you, which is changing the subject. What do you think about the front page of the National, where it shows the Italian coach's face superimposed onto William Wallace, saying Italy would be Scotland's last hope?
I just think it looked silly. The National is just kind of aimed at a rather sort of immature audience, or readership, I should say, if you can call them readers. And I just think it looks silly. It just superimposed silliness on top of silliness.
Yeah.
What more can I say?
Yeah. The Scottish nationalists don't know really what to do when it comes to the England football team, because they don't want to support it. But then some say, oh, well, if we do support it, then maybe that will help, English nationalism, which will help break up the UK or something like that. I don't follow that argument. I don't agree with that argument. I don't think it follows at all. But they're all over the place, as Richard says. It's just childish. Competition with England is at the root of secessionism. Brandy says, thanks for your comments, Max.
Pleasure.
Bill, the letter they sent to Boris was so pathetic. You might not have seen this, but I read it, and they were... I can't actually remember what the point of it was, but it was just a silly letter. It was just kind of... I thought it was maybe meant to be comical in a way. Max, I'm going to play a video here if I can, if we can hold the screen together without it freezing when I play it. But yesterday, 3 years ago, you and I were in George Square, and we had two other chaps with us, and we had a massive banner because Donald Trump was coming to Scotland.
Yes.
I think it was to Turnberry, I presume.
Yeah.
And so the usual suspects created a big fuss about it. So you and me and a couple of mates, always up for some action, got a massive Scots for Trump banner printed.
Yes.
And we held it, and we just walked into George Square and unfurled it, and absolute chaos kicked off. And we've got the video here, and this will be the first time that people have seen this for a while, and I just hope the sound's working on it, because tell me, folks, if the sound is working or not when I play it. But we've got this big banner. There's the police there. The police immediately surrounded us. I had a megaphone, and I read out a welcome to Donald and the First Lady, and I concluded by saying, I said, we're glad that you've come back to your ancestral homeland, because your mother is, of course, half Scottish, which makes you half... Sorry, your mother is fully Scottish, which makes you half Scottish. And haste ye back. That was a message. And the folk kicked off at us to such a level. It was hilarious. And we were there for 45 minutes. You had told the police, we'll leave at 6 o'clock. And we had arrived at 5:15. And we left at 6 o'clock. But by the time 6 o'clock came around, there was 20 police officers in front of us, 2 deep. And they had to escort us out the square with horses around us.
Right.
And they escorted us
the police there.
up Hanover Street, surrounded in this phalanx of horses and police officers. Now, the video doesn't include the phalanx of horses and police officers, by which ourselves were removed from the area. But it was great activism. This was a day ago. This was yesterday, 3 years ago.
Yes, I remember it well.
Oh, yeah. And in this video, there's a black lady standing and she's gesticulating. She's actually with us.
Yes.
And she's gesticulating, she's pointing up at the cenotaph, and she's saying that's what they died for, freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And she's shouting at them.
Yeah.
I just want to make that clear, just in case people wondered who she was and what she was saying. But she was on our side, because she had seen what we were doing, and she immediately came
she wasn't.
over.
You probably remember, I'm sure you remember when we went to London, the most enthusiastic Trump supporters were 2 black guys who had their own group and gave us a card, their contact details and so on, and they were the most pro-Trump people that we came across.
Yes. Well, I'm just going to play this video now. I'll add it to the stream and I'll play it. I should say there's quite a lot of bad language in this.
We wish you and the First Lady an enjoyable visit. As we say in Scotland, he'll stay back.
You are a bastard if you support that Look at it, why are you letting him do this? You're letting him do that with a loudspeaker. You shouldn't be letting him do it.
It's 91. Welcome to you and to the First Lady on your visit to your ancestral homeland. We have not forgotten that you are half Scottish. We have not forgotten that your mother was from Scotland, and we're proud to welcome a fellow Scot back to Scotland and the United Kingdom.
And the police stopped us saying anymore. This guy, this
You're prepared to support this, are you? I don't pay you guys. You let that scum This is the stupidity of it.
And the Scottish
So that was, sorry about the bad language in that, folks, but you couldn't really play it without that. I hope you enjoyed that.
That's all part of it, isn't it?
Yes. We'll put up the link to where you can actually find that on YouTube. We'll put that up there as well. But that was Scots for Trump on the 13th of July 2018, and that video really does deserve to go viral. So yeah, that was great fun. It was. You could watch that over and over, especially.
You could tell Alistair was enjoying himself.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great, and then we got our personal escort in a phalanx of horses, and that video of us getting escorted away, that did actually go viral on Twitter among the usual suspects who thought it was a great laugh. That look at us, we've been taken away by the coppers, and well, the coppers were good about it, but they were nervous, weren't they? I mean, they were like, they kept saying, "When are you going to leave? When are you going to leave?"
I got the impression that the commander on the spot was not all that experienced dealing with these situations, and he was definitely nervous, as Alistair says.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He was nervous. He was more nervous than we were. We weren't nervous at all, because we just like.
Well, we've done this sort of thing a number of times, so you get used to it.
Yeah.
You also get the measure of the opposition, which of course would partly explain Alistair's confidence in his close proximity to these people, and it's a psychological advantage to do that, to have the nerve to do that, because it puts you at a kind of in a superior position to them. To move towards them rather than them moving towards you is an important psychological advantage to make the most of, and Alistair did that, and that's just experience and confidence.
Yeah. Anyway, that we really messed up their hate fest.
Yes.
Because they didn't want that, and that's a brilliant banner that we had. It had the saltire merging with the stars and stripes.
Yes.
And in fact, the chap at the other end of the banner had a stars and stripes flag that he was holding as well. So that was a good event, and hopefully get that another outing on on Twitter. We'll probably put that up on our TikTok account anyway, just for the fun of that.
Well,
today.
The more we do of that sort of thing, the better, because it shows that not everybody in Scotland is represented by these people from basically the far left, and we don't all think along these lines, and we need people throughout the UK and the rest of the world, for that matter, to know that.
Yes. Yeah, Debbie, I think you would have enjoyed it if you had been there. That's for sure. Debbie says it looked like fun. Yeah. So, all right. Hi, Arnie. Well, you see, Adam says, do a unionist demonstration on the fields of Bannockburn. It's an interesting thought, but we're a little bit reluctant to get involved with anything that involves these direct Scottish historical events, because these belong to everybody in that sense, and we wouldn't want to get into a situation where we could be portrayed as somehow against Scottish history. So we tend to avoid anything that's overtly historical in that.
Yeah, I mean the other point I would make on that is that it cheapens the whole history of Scotland and England and all the other nations, and it really cheapens the whole thing to do that sort of stunt. So we wouldn't really want to have anything to do with it. We wouldn't want to have anything to do with that at all, I don't think.
No. Talking about Bannockburn, though, that famous statue of Robert the Bruce was sculpted by a famous English sculptor, which I always find quite a nice little British fact, which we always recall to memory once a year on the date of that chap's death. He also sculpted an incredibly good sculpture of Royal Scots Fusiliers, I think it is, that's outside Ayr Town Hall. We've seen that one. The guy looks like he's got the helmet with the with the netting on it and that sort of stuff. Really good. Good there. Nelson says that we certainly know how to push all their buttons. That's absolutely true. Max, it's end of the hour. Thanks very much for coming on.
Pleasure.
We'll have you back on as always. I think we could do a really good double act here on a regular basis. I don't know if you're up for that or what people think about that, but I mean, we could do something like that. Something to think about anyway,
Yeah,
Max.
sure. Anyway,
Okay.
thank you, Alistair.
Thanks very much. Okay, folks, please show some love there to Max, who is the legend, who is Max Dunbar, a man without whom we would not be able to do all the stuff that we do at A Force for Good, because I've said to you before, he is the driving force in many ways, or certainly was the driving force to get AFFG out on the streets in the first place, and we're always very grateful to him for that. Alan says, great, Max, thumbs up there. Folks, Adam says, give up for Max Dunbar. Clap signs, absolutely. Tommy says, thank you again, Max. Enjoy your opinions. Richard says, great work that you're doing, Max. And Catherine says, thank you, Max. Fantastic. Now, the competition is for these bourbon biscuits. Now, the question was, on this day, 14th of July in 1865, a particular mountain was climbed. Bill says, Max seems a very confident activist. Linda says, another brilliant show, Alistair. Love listening to you and Max live on here. Adam says, thank you, Max. Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. You get a Mr. there. Well done. And Arnie says, nice one, Max. Now, the answer to the question was Edward Whymper, on this day, conquered the Matterhorn. Not without, of course, considerable tragedy ensuing to 4 of the 7 members of his party. And we do have a winner, and I'll just type in the winner here. And there was several, but this particular person just pipped everybody to the post. There you go, Debbie. Congratulations. Congratulations for getting these bourbon biscuits. They'll be winging their way to you this afternoon. You should have them hopefully by Saturday. Good. Well done, and thank you to the others who sent in as well, but unfortunately didn't get the answer. Please do share this, folks, if you can. Please retweet it with a positive comment. If you can retweet it with a positive comment, then we can retweet your tweet to 26,000 people. That's a way of getting your message out there. And share on Facebook and on YouTube. Adam says, congratulations, Debbie. Alan says, well done, Debbie. Christopher says, well done. And Debbie says, woohoo, ta. Good. Hope you're doing well, Debbie. Richard says, congrats. And so does Tommy. And Tommy Scott. And Catherine. And Linda. And Bill. And Bill says, look at Churchill Biscuits website. Loads of amazing UK themed tins. Well, thanks for that comment, Bill. We will have a look at Churchill Biscuits website. Music Collector says we need to get on Telegram. We've heard that. You're not the first person to say that, sir. You're no doubt correct. We need to get on a lot of platforms, and it's just about doing what we possibly can to do it. We work full time here. We have a great team behind us who do all of this. Please, if you're on TikTok, follow us on TikTok. We'll be putting out that video later today from George Square that some of you saw and enjoyed earlier in the program. Also follow us, of course, on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. We've got the biggest Instagram page, unionist Instagram page in the world, and we're aiming to have the biggest unionist TikTok page in the world. And with your help, if TikTok's your bag, then we can do that. Now, a way that you can help us is purchase our merchandise. Some of you will have noticed me wearing this A Force for Good t-shirt. We've got this and lots of other pro UK designs at our Teespring store. We'll put up the link to that on Twitter and also on Facebook, where you can get this and you can get other t-shirts, range of colours and all sizes. And our biggest seller is a blue t-shirt that says Scotland, that says Scottish and British, and has got a Union heart, half of it Saltire, half of it Union Jack. That's our biggest seller, but there's lots of stuff on there. Please do take a look at that. It's not possible to do stuff free, of course. Everything costs, because this is my full-time job, and we also have other people who are employed part-time doing this to put out this quality material every day of the year. Really does require a lot of effort, and so thank you to the team behind it and the team behind this broadcast as well. And thanks, of course, to everybody who comes in to be interviewed. Alan says he's got one. Excellent. Well, if you do get one, please do consider taking a photograph of yourself wearing our t-shirt. We will then put that out on Instagram, we'll put it out on TikTok, we'll put it out on Twitter, and that will generate more sales, which generates more income for us, because merchandise really is a way that we're able to get in the money that we need. And we do need money this year for a 36-page magazine that we're going to be publishing at the end of the summer on policies for keeping the United Kingdom together, and that's going to be going out to all the opinion formers and legislators. So we're going to need money for that. We need support, so anything that you guys can do to help us is really, really appreciated. That's just the way of the world. Until a multi-millionaire donor comes along and funds us, then we rely, as we properly should anyway, upon everybody else who cares. And I know that's our wonderful listeners and followers. So thank you so much for everything that you do. And thank you so much for watching and engaging with us today. Folks, it's come to the bottom of the hour. We will be back next week, and it just remains for me to say, God bless the United Kingdom and God save the Queen. See you next week.